Did you play Little League? I loved playing baseball when I was a kid. Pee Wee to farm, 4 years of Nevada Little League, 3 years of Babe Ruth. Loved baseball. My love for it was always better than my skill, but that never stopped me. Say I had an up and down Little League career. One of the great days of my life to this day, though. It's April 1980. I'm in the 4th grade, Mrs. Keener. Every Friday, maybe it was once a month on one Friday, a different row. We get to go with Mrs. Keener off campus to A&W, leave Rancho Essentialist School, go out the back way through the parking lot, and hey, A&W, man, come on, root beer float, the onion rings, Papa Burger. It's a Friday, it's my row 4. We're going Mrs. Keener for lunch at A&W. Oh my god, I'm already feeling good because it's a Friday. Even feeling even better because I got a Little League game that night. Lou Sutton Field, 6 p.m. Got my burger on, and then that evening went to Lou Sutton. I was on the Bears. Teammate of the Kimmer. That point on the season, I was hitless. But that night, bottom of the 6th inning, tie game. My one and only at bat of the game, up I step against Dick Schultz's Buffaloes. Ross Sato on the mound. I got a base hit to right. My very first hit in Little League, won the game. Safe to say that was the highlight of the season for me. I got a little better when I was 10, started pitching when I was 11. I was a chubby kid, though. Chubby, some might even say portly or downright corpulent. And man, I was a pretty good ball player by the time I was 11, but when you're 11, it's like you got the scarlet letter, you're too old, you're a 29-year-old stuck in AAA, and I never got to play in the major leagues. Maybe they were faddists, maybe I just had the stink of age on me, but man, I knew I was better than some of those little goyish and nepotistic little leaguers. "Oh, I'm friends with your dad." Man, I could play and I had a heart. I was a career minor leaguer though, buddy. 12-year-old year on the Trojans. I'm massive. Right? Like my uniform was so tight it hurt to wear it. Number 15 was the biggest uni. It's like polyester. The poor like Trojan patch was getting stretched all the way over to the side, man. But I hit and I hit for power. Hit 3 home runs over the fence that year. Memories. Why am I talking about this? Because I also played Babe Ruth League and I was an all-star in my 15-year-old season. Never the best, but for one shiny moment, I was an all-star. It made me think how cool it would be to be an all-star in the big leagues. Then it made me wonder what it'd be like to make it even one time. And then it made me think about those guys who maybe this was the apex of their professional career, a one-time all-star appearance. Welcome to the Rated Rabbi Sports Card Podcast, where sports cards and pop culture meet the 1984 All-Star Game. I'm your host, Rabbi David Spinrad, and this is episode 34, The Worst of the Best. In this episode, we are going to take a look at some of the worst All-Stars in the 1980s. How you say, how you ask, why and who are you to determine the worst of the 1980s All-Stars? Well, listen, man, make your own podcast. Come up with your own odd criteria. Sit alone in your basement talking to yourself. This one's mine. So here's my criteria for what makes a worst All-Star. First of all, it has to be the only All-Star appearance of the player's career. One and one alone. Solo one-time All-Star. Criteria number 2. He has to be the only All-Star from his team. So it's not enough for him to only make one. If there's another guy who also makes it from the team, you're off the list. You have to be the best worst, which leads to number 3. You have to play on a last place team. Very rarely do you have 2 All-Stars make it from a last place team. So criteria 1, one and only. Criteria 2, only on your team. Criteria 3, last place finish for your ball club. And the fourth and final career WAR, the lowest career WAR, meaning that you were the least better than average across your career. 4 criteria to determine the worst All-Stars in the 1980s. What do you think? Can you even remember who made the All-Star teams? Well, I did a little research. I consulted the internet. So here we go. The third runner-up for the all-time worst All-Star. Chicago fans are not going to like this. It's Ed Farmer. Pitcher Ed Farmer in 1980. Farmer in his 10th season in the big leagues for his 7th team. Finally made his first All-Star game. Unfortunately, Farmer's team, the White Sox, actually only finished 5th behind California and Seattle. So in spite him only having a 0.4 WAR over 11 seasons with 8 teams, his team was not bad enough. Second runner-up in the worst All-Star for the 1980s is pitcher Ken Schramm. Schramm pitched 7 years in the big leagues, pitched for Toronto, pitched for Minnesota, and pitched for Cleveland. Schramm makes one All-Star game is 1986, but the problem is Brooks Jacoby makes the All-Star team to the third baseman. So Schramm is out for one reason, even though he was real bad in his career, real 2.8 WAR. But Jacoby makes him ineligible. And another reason he is ineligible, and I have an image for you right here, is he played on a winning team. He played on a team, the Cleveland Indians, that finished 84-78. For those watching on YouTube, I've got that famous baseball 87 Indian Uprising SI cover jinx. They're predicted to, build on what they had the season before, the cover boys that year. 84 U.S. Olympian Corey Snyder, and outfielder Joe Carter. That's a great cover. Unfortunately, what happens to Cleveland in 87? They go 61-101. They finish in dead last. They are in last place, and they are below 500 for the entire season. So it ain't Schramm. First runner up from your San Francisco. Joe, I have a Schramm card before we go on. 84 times. Ken Schramm. Third worst All-Star of the 1980s. The runner-up, the second worst All-Star from the 1980s. I kind of tip my hand from the 1984 San Francisco Giants. Shown here in an unopened pack, 84 Cello Atlee Hammaker on the top. The second worst All-Star of the 1980s. Oh my, oh my, my. So Atlee is acquired from KC in the Vitae Blue trade. Actually, he placed 12 years in the big leagues, mostly with the Giants, also with San Diego, Chicago, a bit with Kansas City at the end. Makes just one and only one All-Star game at the old Comiskey 1983. Hammaker's having a season. The Giants at one point, he is their only All-Star, right? He is their, it's a dark time for the Giants. At one point during the season, Hammaker is like 9-2 at the end of June. He's 9-2 with a 1.53 ERA. But what we don't know is he's hurting. His shoulder's hurting, his elbow's hurting, he has tendonitis. And if you recall the one and only All-Star game that Atlee was a part of, it's also the one and only time that there was a grand slam in All-Star history given up by Atlee Hammaker and crushed by Angels Freddie Lynn. Man. So he takes over for Soto in the third, and Hammaker allows 6 hits. Actually, the first batter is Jim Rice, who hits a home run, right? 6 hits, 7 earned runs, 2/3 of an inning Atlee. So everyone said, oh man, this ruined his career. And you might even think that, right? That this got to his head. He still finishes the season 10-9 with a 2.25. But the real thing, he talks about it then, he talks about it now. You could look at him. He was hurt. He was in a lot of pain. He shouldn't have even been pitched in the All-Star game. He's out of the lineup a lot the second half of the season. Goes on to miss all of 84 and all of 86. Comes back in 87, goes 10-10, and then wouldn't you know it, Atlee Hammaker, you know guns, so son of a gun. Game 7, St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals fans, this one's for you, my friends. He likes hitting, if you recall. Jose Oquendo hit a bomb off him. Oquendo hits, 2 home runs on the season, and he lets him have a big 3-run homer. Cards go on to win it 6-0. Thank you very much, Atlee Hammaker. Okay. Who is the very worst All-Star in the 1980s? Third runner-up was Ed Farmer, Chicago White Sox. Second runner-up was Kenny Schramm. First runner-up was Atlee Hammaker, although he had he had the worst performance in All-Star history. He had a pretty decent career, right? He plays all those seasons. He has a solid 8+ WAR in his career. Giants, however, finished 5th place, not last, second runner-up. So by my criteria, the very worst All-Star in the 1980s was Seattle Mariner third baseman Jim Presley. What you say, hound dog? He was good. No. No, he wasn't. Chris Berman actually helped him more than anything else. Jim Hound Dog Presley, he has one big season. 1986, here I have for you, just to mix it up, is Jim Presley's 1986 Donruss card. One thing that's cool about Presley, he is from Escambia High School in Pensacola, Florida, which is also where Emmitt Smith is from. So Presley, 1986 as the worst All-Star in the 1980s, is the one and only representative of the Seattle Mariners, who will finish last that season, 65 and 95, 25 behind the Angels. That's right, 65 and 95. They were so bad they didn't even bother playing 2 games for the full complement. Plays 8 years in the bigs, mostly with Seattle. Catches on for a minute at the very end with the Braves. His career is for his career. He only earned a 0.3 WAR. He is 1/3 better than the average player. So let's run that back again. Jim Presley is the worst All-Star of the 1980s. Maybe lacks the drama of the Atlee Hammaker debacle, but by far he is the worst. 0.3 WAR, one only All-Star appearance for a last place team, the 1986 Seattle Mariners. Stepping in the top half of the third, as Fernando Valenzuela takes over for starter Charlie Lee, is the sole representative of the Cleveland Indians, Andre Thornton. Think Andre Thornton. What do you think about when you think Andre Thornton right away? You think about the shades, don't you? Like these cool brother aviators. Come on. This is why you should watch it on the YouTube channel, Sharky. You got visuals, really smooth, brother. He's sort of like the proto Garrett Anderson in smoothness. Man, so Thornton was a good ball player, but like one of those great players on bad teams, he was the one and only representative, a rule almost from the very start since 1935. The rules have been every single team has to have a representative. And I'll tell you what, I've always kind of liked it. That was kind of lame. They tried to decide the World Series based on a game that had like mandatory participation. Everyone gets a little league trophy, not a skite, but I do like the rule because some years, if it wasn't for that, it would there'd be no Giants. It's like when in the NBA, man, back in the day, the Warriors never had anybody. Uh, Once they had Latrell Sprewell, I remember was trying to get psyched on Spree. Thornton stands in first pitch against Fernando, smashes one right up the middle. He on a board with a lead off single. Back to the top of the order, Lou Whitaker steps in for his second trip to the plate. He rips one past Garvey down the line. Strawberry up with it. Thornton actually takes it, goes for it, man. Goes first to third on the base hit. Runners on the corners. Nobody out. Up steps Rod Carew. And you know it, the more I watch this game, that it's like you can see it's older Carew. Still him, still batting the same, but he's just the reflexes are just a tiny bit slower than what they were that made him Rod Carew. But he's battling Fernando, man. 2-2, fouling it off, foul tip. Oh, Carter can't hold on. And then he gets it. Actually, he hits it almost straight down into the dirt in front of home plate. It bounces all the way to Garvey at first, who makes a sick defensive play. Check it out. Bouncer, right? He's a righty, so he comes up with the ball, pivots to his left, steps on first to get the hitter Carew, turns all the way around, and then fires a strike home to Gary Carter, but not just at the plate, in front of the plate, up the line a tiny little bit. Carter's such a great defender. Steps not into the line, but forward, but not steps. He kind of hops, times the jump perfectly, catches the ball, lands, blocks the plate, and Thornton is out. You should look it up on YouTube. Just the Garvey full turn, throw to the plate. Carter steps up, grabs it, blocks the plate. A double play. And it's just one of those things that just kind of happens. But looking back at these two great all-star players, like, wow. Wow. I guarantee you they made the majors in Little League. Oh man. All right. 2 away. Lou Whitaker is now on second base. Ripken steps up, bounces one to Schmidt, who again, the same kind of thing. Rangers like far to his left, where it would have been easier for Ozzie to make the play, but Schmidt's like, I'm a freaking alpha. Slides left, and then the momentum carries him, but he has time to like set his feet, makes this great throw to get Ripken to retire the side. No runs on a couple of hits. A sterling defensive play by Carter and Garvey to just take my word for it. Go watch it. All right. End of 2.5 in Dorktown, USA. We cut to commercial, and the commercial is actually super cool. I don't know if it's like thoughtfully progressive or edgy, or just, it's at a time where you could definitely, if you weren't paying attention, miss it, right? Maybe think through the lens of color blindness, not thinking about the differences of race, ethnicity, and culture and their implications, at least if you were like white privileged, right? I'm gonna own mine. I'm Jewish, so maybe I'm white adjacent sometimes. Mostly I'm white, right? So I could not notice the implications of this commercial, but looking back over time, maybe I've learned a thing. This commercial is dope, right? So we have this it's a Budweiser commercial, right? And you hear the announcer going, "To everyone who's got what it takes to make his own breaks, this Bud's for you." And then it shows a local TV crew, and you see the guy on the right. He's Johnny on the spot with the cameraman, and he goes, "This is Paul Martinez." And then you see that other guy, like the white patriarchy guy on the left. He steps in, he like snatches the microphone from him and says, "I'll take it from here, Paul." And it's this like total white supremacy move. But again, like super plausible deniability. And like that's really it's a heck of a commercial. I wish I could like meet the director and buy him a Budweiser. Okay, so the white dude takes it away from the Hispanic dude, right? And then what happens is he's trying to interview that guy behind him walking off a little private jet on the tarmac. And then we cut away, and then it shows like this plane going in for a crash landing. And Paul and the cameraman just being Johnny on the spot, jumping in the van and going to where the plane is making an emergency landing. This old white dude is over here talking to the other old white dude coming off the plane. But check out our boy Paul Martinez on the spot. He's there. There's the emergency plane. It's landed. He's talking to the firemen, getting the what's going on? What happened? What'd you do? What'd they do? He is making the story, Paul Martinez. Yeah, baby. Everyone who's got what it takes to make his own breaks. Right? So then the commercial goes on and it cuts to the commercial of Paul Martinez reporting this fire, but on a commercial later on that evening. And then they pan out, they pull back, right? And they show that they're showing this commercial in like a bar or a restaurant, and they're all watching it. And then you see who's watching it is Paul Martinez and his family. I love this, right? So you see this Bud's for you. You can see the pride in Paul, but who's the guy on his left, right? Holding up that mug of beer. Well, in the frame before, he holds up the mug of beer and like he makes it l'chaim. He says, and you can tell he's an immigrant. He has an accent. He goes, "To Paul Martinez, my son," and it's super dope. Right, and you could easily mistake this story, the story of making it as in America as an immigrant. You could also like look through the lens that we're all the same and it's colorblind. But I actually think this means more. I think it's dope. I think it's super progressive. And I don't know. I've seen the commercial a million times and I always kind of get stoked on it. All right. I think that's a good place to stop. I jibber jabbered more than enough. What we talk about? Talk about Little League, that great day, the first hit and an A&W Root Beer float. We talked about, man, how tight my uniform was when I played Little League as a 12-year-old on the Trojans. I was hitting for power. Talked about the worst all-stars of the 1980s. No offense, Cub, Chicago, White Sox fans. Ed Farmer, the fourth worst. Third runner-up. Second worst. Third worst. Second runner-up. Ken Schramm's, the second worst first runner-up, Atlee Hammaker, and the winner of the worst all-star in the 1980s, Jim Presley. Ran down a little smooth brother Andre Thornton. Great double play by Garvey and Carter. Pretty awesome commercial about an immigrant family and making their dreams come true. Oh, I'm such a goober. All right, I'm stopping. I will see you again next Wednesday. Until then, may the world smile upon you, and may you ever be blessed with health, long life. See you next time.